supply chain, consulting, warehouse operations, market share, revenue, material handling, sales, transportation.
It's the end of the week. It's the end of the week. It's the end of the week. It's the end.
All right. Yeah. Welcome, Charles.
Hey, nice to see you, David.
Yeah, nice to see you again.
It's
Welcome
the
back.
end of the week.
It's the
Yeah,
end of the
thank
week.
you. I just, like I was saying, I feel like I'm on the set of Interstellar. You
Oh.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm Matthew McConaughey. I mean, a better looking version, of
Mhm.
course. And I've just landed on some alien planet in an alternate universe that happens to be 12 centimeters away from the sun. It's killing me.
Yeah, just
I
for
don't know what these. I think they do it on purpose to torture us.
just for people to understand, it's now like they've doubled the amount. Well, went from 1 to 2 spotlights, which is actually very, very powerful.
And everybody who knows us knows you don't actually want to highlight the features of ourselves.
no.
Like we're
No,
not.
exactly.
We're kind of a soft lighting,
Yeah.
filtered face. Yeah, right.
I shaved yesterday. Like, there's probably a spot that's going to show up here. But yeah, Interstellar, or like about to get like surgery or something.
That's exactly right.
I can't. Everything's
yeah,
white.
that-
The
you
notes
know
are
what?
very
You know
hard
what?
to see.
The last time I was in this kind of a lighting situation, I was getting my appendix removed. You know, I was 8 years old and getting my appendix removed.
Oh my god! All right.
All right.
So yeah, so you're back from Korea.
I am back from Korea. I've been back for 3 or 4 days now, right?
How's
And
the
I was
schedule?
there for a couple of weeks, and it was, jet lag is real. It's very funny for anyone who's never done this before. You'll read about this on the internet, and it's a completely true phenomenon. Going east to west, it's very easy to adjust to any time zone difference. Within a day, you're feeling pretty good. No joke, and you're sleeping normally and all that. Coming from west to east, it is like slams you. So I had a nap at lunch.
Mhm.
I wake up every day at 2 a.m, and it's not like I wake up like an old man wake up kind of scenario. It's,
Yeah.
I'm awake. In fact, I do with my family a Wordle. You know Wordle?
Yeah.
So we're in a Wordle group, and I have to do the Wordle and wait 4 hours
Before
I could share it, so I don't look like a nutball. But yeah, so I'm back from Korea, where we have an office that's got a lot of exciting and fun things going on there. One of the interesting things that we did in the last few months is we have, of course, we have a lot of clients who are on warehouse management systems, software systems that manage the warehouse. And for our clients who have 24/7 or even just 24/5, like operations
Okay.
late into the night, providing customer support. So should anything go wrong, troubleshoot and work them through any problems. Having someone, a team that we're building out 13 hours different means we actually can provide with just Montreal and Korea 24-hour coverage without disrupting anyone's sleep,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and as you know, we are in a process of a series of cascading go lives on a very big project
Mhm.
there with a wonderful client.
Yeah, which is actually going on right now, right?
That's why I was there, and that's what I meant. Yeah.
The so we've covered other offices in recent weeks with this podcast. So a little bit of the same, maybe regarding South Korea.
Yep.
So talk about maybe how this was sparked, or what made it.
Well, we were doing a very big project in LA, right? With a defunct company that was called Shift, and we're doing a lot of good work with them. And
Jeff brought it up last week.
well, there you go. And through that work, through actually Bain, the consulting firm Bain, which is a global management consulting firm. We got recruited to go to Korea and help a very large retailer there with one of their online strategies, one of their direct to consumer fulfillment strategies that we had a particular expertise in. And of course, I am terrified of flying over water. I always like being near a landing strip. So at first, I was very, very scared to even contemplate going to Korea until I learned what I had never learned before is actually all these planes fly basically over land to get to Asia, right?
Yeah.
You know, even now we don't fly through Russian airspace, but we hug pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
And you're never actually far away from land the entire flight, which is crazy to think about. And going to a major Asian metropolis is so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a beautiful and exciting and dynamic and exotic but comfortable, and Seoul especially so, because the language, the second language you're taught in school, you get some Japanese, but you get a lot of English. Mm-hmm. So you could walk into a Starbucks and order in English pretty much anywhere in Korea, and you'll get the order right. They don't need to struggle with that. And so it's a very comfortable place for the foreigner like me to shuffle around. So it's both exotic and comfortable. It was such an exciting thing, and I loved the people there on the project. It was wonderful. And when we did that, we saw there was a real opportunity to bring some value to the supply chain in Korea, and got very lucky. Met Harris, who's the partner of the Korean office, and had a dinner with him. Exchanged ideas. We are philosophically completely aligned in the hotbed issues of designing warehouses, and fell in business love immediately.
Speaking of Harris, maybe his background, right?
Well, Harris is he's an accountant from the prestigious Seoul National University. He worked for a retailer called E-Mart in Korea, very large. Think a Target, not like a slightly upscale. When we say Target, E-Mart is like a Walmart but slightly fancier, and I mean like slightly, but very major retailer. And he designed and implemented the very first automated grocery facility, direct-to-consumer grocery facility in Korea. And that's why we were introduced, because we had that in common. I did a lot of work in the very early days of direct-to-consumer groceries in New York with Fresh Direct. And so we thought we'd get along. In fact, Harris, unbeknownst to me, had visited while I was working with Fresh Direct in those days, and Gabrielle was working at Fresh Direct. Harris had visited that facility on his worldwide learning tour.
I didn't know that.
No, well, it's a funny bit of trivia. There you go.
Interesting.
Think about that. 3 lid partners within the span of 6 months had all set foot on the same
facility.
Crappy, sort of rundown industrial facility in Queens, in Long Island City, New York.
Very nice.
And years later, their paths come and they form a team.
Yeah, that's very cool. So the one thing you said to me I thought was interesting was, we don't exist over there. I mean, a company like LID was not the concept of logistics, consulting, and distribution, and was not we don't have other competitors, if I could say, in Korea,
right,
that would do this. They would be elsewhere, from Japan or
no. So First of all, the idea of industrial engineering and design, what the business culture in Korea is very different than in North America. We learned that as we went along. So the natural disposition of a Korean company would be to hire their own internal team who will do the design, their concept and design work, then to engage multiple equipment suppliers to do the design work for them, and the winning person has the best design and then the best price and wins the contract. So the idea of hiring a specialized firm in design to design warehouses is non-existent, and on the technology side it's even more stark. So in Korea and in Japan, the tendency to buy commercial software, to buy a software package off the shelf and to apply it to your business, to bring in experts to modify, configure, and bespoke, quote unquote, that software to the business is unheard of. What they would do is they would hire a team of developers and have the developers develop exactly what they want. And actually, what you learn from that, why this is an opportunity for us, is if I'm building software, any of us go and build anything, like IKEA furniture. If I grab something, well, you're probably different, you're more meticulous than me. But I never buy anything that I have to assemble myself, because I guarantee you that is a permanently unstable structure, right? It's just not going. In fact, I got stuff in my house that if I went, like, I wiggled it a little bit, the whole thing would collapse. And that's the story of my life, If I'm going to put my massive weight on something, I bought it already assembled. That's the only way to live. And the same is true of software. In other words, if you get a bunch of amateurs who may be brilliant
in coding and
exactly, but if you ask these amateurs to build a WMS from scratch, a warehouse management system from scratch, they're going to make amateur mistakes. Mm-hmm. And these amateur mistakes are sometimes immediately obvious, but sometimes those mistakes are fundamental, hidden away at the core of the architecture of the thing. Mm-hmm. And years later,
it's penalized.
The penalties show up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's so if you go through the warehouses of Korea, you'll see that all of them have basically an amateur WMS running. Now, if you're Samsung or you're Hyundai, they don't have amateur systems. They have very, very sophisticated systems,
which they've done.
They have done themselves. They have their own company that builds software. That company probably hires their developers out to
other.
Yeah.
Interesting. And some of I'm going also with some stories you told me, but obviously a much more a longer history than North America. So from a logistics standpoint, just how a city has been built poses quite a lot of logistic challenges.
Well, this is the other thing that I love, and you and I both have had experience in Europe, and then and some experience in Mexico, and here in North America, and there's a fundamental math to logistics and the supply chain. What's the cost of land, what's the cost of labor, what's the transportation network, and from that, and by cost of labor, what are the labor regulations, and those other, and from that, if I know that, I know what the solution should be. We sometimes, as North Americans, when we'd go to Europe and see these facilities, and we'd say, wow, they're so sophisticated, and they are, but they're sophisticated by necessity. Yeah. We're making, when we build these giant, ugly, horrible warehouses in the exurbs of any metropolitan area, we're making the economically intelligent decision for us to build a European-style warehouse, at the outskirts of Montreal or Toronto or LA. Makes absolutely no economic sense. Yeah. Similarly, for them, they do not have the luxury of building these giant, squat, fat, long, one-floor buildings. So they must solve problems differently. When you go to Korea, what's so amazing is you have to remember that in 1988, when the Koreans held the Seoul Summer Olympics, right, where the great Ben Johnson
100 meter.
ran the fastest 100 meters anyone had ever seen, and we'll stop that story there because more or less Korea was not a wealthy country, right? It was a developing country, and between 1988 and 2023, right now the standard of living in Korea is roughly equivalent to Canada.
Yeah.
Right? Certainly the Seoul metropolitan area, the standard of living of the average Seoul metropolitan area resident is equal to any metropolitan area in North America. And what that incredible advance, right, from no one owns a car to everyone owns a car, as an example, in such a short period of time, means that the road network cannot keep up. The infrastructure of that area, of that city, of Seoul, which is 25 million people now, right, could not keep up with the quick rise in standard of living.
Yep.
That means that while we have the luxury of these giant, annoying, for the average person, annoying trucks, but for us, hugely economic and cost-effective ways of delivering product, we can have 53-foot trailers. We can tag them up and run them down a highway tandem because we've got this beautiful road network that can accommodate giant pieces of giant vehicles. In Korea, if I want to do last mile deliveries, I am going to have to get a vehicle through sometimes roads that are barely wider than this room. So I need to design a truck that's much smaller. I need to design a truck that are largely like gull-wing trucks. So the Back to the Future DeLorean, right?
Yeah.
Gull-wing
It's on the
trucks.
side.
So because I may not be able to access things from the back, or I question. But I need, and then once the size of that truck, which is defined by the narrowness of the road, actually defines everything
else.
from the manufacturer to that delivery.
The number of trips you have to make.
Number
how
of trips you have to
prepare
make,
the
which
orders.
defines how you gotta plan your dock, which means how you plan your picking operations, which means how you do your receiving. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and another way of thinking about it is a fascinating thing that I love about Korea. When you and I, as we often do, want to go for a dinner, we'll go here in Montreal. Let's say, if David's paying for it, we'll go to Joe Beef, right? We'll go to Liverpool House. We'll do, and if I'm paying for it, it's Five Guys.
Yeah.
But if
That's
we go
good.
if we go to Joe Beef, you know that there's a menu. There's going to be, let's say, 8 appetizers. There's going to be another 8 entrees. There's going to be 4 or 5 desserts, and there'll be some extras. But the variety of food items in all of that is going to be enormous, right? Meaning that if you're a vegan and I want steak, or if you want pasta and I want seafood, that happens. That is normal Western eating, right?
Right.
In Korea, if you want to go out for dinner, you're going to go out, you're going to say, let's go for, japchae. Let's go for fried chicken. The restaurant is really very limited in the menu option. So you walk down the street, it's exciting, you see all the neon lights and all that. And that's because where we would have one restaurant, they would have 3 in the same square footage. Their backs, because we're choosing what to eat, our menu begins with the restaurant choice that already tells us what we're eating that night. We're going to have dak galbi tonight. Oh, so good, which is a barbecue chicken. It is so good. But when you get there, you don't have 1,000 options. You don't have 24 base core things to create, thousands of permutations. You have 3 things you're gonna take. How does that affect logistics? Well, first off, the restaurants are small. They don't have a ton of seats. The back rooms are tiny, meaning the place where all the food is stored. They will only have 1 day at best supply.
Yeah. So it's daily deliveries for everybody.
They don't have room. If you look at our main mass chain restaurants, if you think of Saint-Hubert is going to have 400 to 500 SKU
Seats.
items in that place, right?
Yeah.
Maybe even 900.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And you'll know that to order a case of the bulk of that stuff, that's going to last them 6 weeks, right? So it's one master case. Well, in Korea, they can't afford to have a case of goods in that restaurant.
Everything's a unit.
Everything's a unit. And so in the entire logistics supply chain, from how the manufacturer feeds the distribution center to the end customer, be it a home point or completely different. And so exciting once you it's a math problem, right?
Yeah, and you on specific case that we don't need to talk about, but you explain how that, these thoughts or what you learn over there could be applied here in some of the, when you talk about the sizing of the manufacturing.
Oh yeah, well it's very cool because we do a lot of work, let's say specifically in food service,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The distributors who distribute to restaurants. Well, guess what? They're all figuring out how are they going to stop carrying so much inventory, reduce the size of their back stores, because these restaurants, commercial real estate, incredibly expensive, and they don't want to have their restaurant be 30%, non-productive space and 70% where the customers. If I can get an extra table into that restaurant on the same square footage, that makes all the difference between profit and loss in many cases, right? So they start looking at it and they say, okay, do I really need a case of napkins? Could be a week. I'm getting 3 deliveries a week from these people. Why am I carrying a week of anything? I should be able to only carry 2 days of supply and get my stuff in. And what is the consequence in that? And you go, oh my God, if I could carry 2 days of supply like the Koreans, like the Europeans, I could squeeze so much space out of the back room. I can get a table or two, an extra table or two. That just adds, that makes such a difference in profitability. So all these companies are now, all these major restaurant chains are starting to really think that way. And so it's very helpful that we've learned a lot about the implications in the distribution center, particularly in the distribution center, of going from the way we do picking in there to a batch and sort. And I don't want to bore everyone with the details, but that there are lessons to apply from the folks who've had to solve that problem before we have to us, just as much as we've had to solve technology problems a little bit, I'd say, better than they have, and we can bring that value to them.
Shifting a little bit, in terms of where Seoul is positioned as geographically, is that useful for the rest of Asia as like a hub?
I think, like Europe, probably like South America, I think we are very lucky. We're lucky, but we're also a little, we have blinders on that, in North America, we have a single trading bloc, right? Which does largely include, it's Canada, United States, and Mexico. And Europe has a trading bloc, but there is a greater language disparity there, right? So to say Asia, no. I think you have to attack each market specifically, uniquely, and understand the unique features of them. From a pure, I hate to use the word logistics perspective, of course, to have somebody in those time zones, a team of qualified people who can go and quickly deploy to other countries instead of having you and me, we're too old for it, go across the planet again. That's incredibly useful.
Even though my wife asks when is the time we'll be able to go to Korea.
Go!
Yeah.
I'd love it.
Yeah, I should.
All right, Angie, if you're listening, shout out to the team in Korea right now. If you listen to this tomorrow morning, David would like to take over and do the next Go Live event, okay?
Yeah.
And with that, we're done.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, I have one last question.
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot while I was gone.
Okay.
One thing has been bugging me more than anything.
You're going to say something stupid.
Do you know what Emilio does at LID?
Oh, okay. Well, Actually, he through a learning lab. So no, the answer is no. But he worked really, really hard. I don't know, a week ago or two to justify his existence through a learning lab here that he gave.
Really?
Yeah, and a lot of people attended.
It's funny how those kind of what Emilio does, and then he's going to give a learning lab exactly while I'm not around. All right, well, it's still a mystery to me, and I wish you a great weekend.
Yeah, same to you. Cheers.
Cheers.